Gracious and loving God, so overrule my words, that your words may be heard, and being heard may be believed, and being believed may be lived. Amen. It. The NRSV translation of today's gospel passage refers to the child as it. Jesus took a child and put it among them. Then he took it into his arms. I really not noticed that until another priest, the Reverend Gwen Fry, complained about this on her Facebook page. She said, the translators call the child it. This, she wrote that as a transgender person, she has been called it by way too many people. People are never and should never be called an it, she said. However, I think that helps make the point of where I want to go with today's sermon, because I want to focus on the child. The child who is placed in the middle of the room is a symbol for all of us. The child is a symbol of those who are on the bottom, the unwelcome, the ones who don't count, those who are other, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, those who are invisible. Remember, the child in those days was not considered a person, and at best was a possession of the Father. In one of the gospel versions of the feeding of the 5,000, it says, Jesus fed 5,000 men, not counting the women and children. That's a commentary right there. Children didn't count. And that's why they make a powerful symbol when paired with the disciples arguing about who is the most important one. This is a gospel where translations you read matter. And I use other translations when I really do the storytelling in context of all of this. My Greek isn't that great, but in the Message translation, it says that Jesus cradled the child in his arms. The Reverend Dr. Phil Rutledge, in his dramatic telling of the gospel that we watched last year during Lent, does the same thing. He cradles that child. It's an infant, you see, totally vulnerable, and an even more powerful symbol than a child, for many infants did not survive in those days. They and most children are not counted in the census until they reach working age because of the high mortality rate. But Jesus, in just a few verses later, will talk about the dangers of anyone who causes the little ones to fall into sin. It's that famous, better than a millstone be put around their neck and be thrown in the water than to lead one of these astray. For the child in the story is a symbol of the last and the least and the invisible. Now, many of you heard me preach about Good Samaritan Episcopal Church, which is my wife's parish, and the men from the group homes. But there's enough new folks, I haven't talked about this in a while. So I want to remind you about them because this is the best example I can think of. The men are all intellectually disabled. Many have been abandoned by their families and left to the state to care for them. They are truly invisible to the world. When they first came to Good Sam, there were a couple that had been going they were members of, they lived at Baker House, which is on the property, with Enoch Baptist, Good Sam, and all that. And a couple of them came. One of them got sent off to another house, and he insisted he had to come to church. Well, they couldn't just bring him, so they brought the whole house full of them. And then the word got out that they were welcome, and they brought another house full of them. And now a third of her congregation are these men with intellectual disabilities. Now, this is not men without some bumps. One of them would plug his imaginary phone into the back and sit there and talk. Another one would blow bubbles and make rude noises in the back. And then there was Andy, who sat there and scowled the entire service. Some of the members commented, he scares me. And they said to Wendy, I know we've prayed for new members, but this really wasn't what we had in mind. And Andy scares us, and we're afraid he'll scare others away. Wendy said to them, well, this is who God sent us when we ask for new members, and they will be welcomed in this parish. Over the weeks, Wendy would go back to them and pray for them during communion, and she started to offer communion to them, and most would take it. Finally, their senior warden said, "The heck with this," and a group of them got up, and they just brought those guys in their wheelchairs right up to the rail. And Andy, they'd all go over. "Peace, Andy." Andy, smile. And then one day, somebody went over and said, "Peace be with you." And then he put his hand out and said, "Peace." Andy, who's basically nonverbal, said, "Peace." The people who care for the men reported to Wendy that the way they treat each other at the homes has changed. There are fewer arguments. On Sunday morning in particular, they help each other get ready to come to church. And Andrew, the angry, nonverbal guy, well, he sits there with his big smile on his face. At the peace, he stands up and wanders around going, "Hug, hug, hug." And when he arrives, everybody knows it, because he comes down the center line and goes, "Andy's here!" Even if it's the middle of the sermon and they're late because they had trouble getting the van going or something. Everybody knows when Andy, who they all thought scared them, arrives. You see, Good Sam smiles now because they know they've helped these men see the face of Christ, and they see the face of Christ in these men. Most importantly, the congregation now says, this is not a ministry we do. Don't say to Wendy that, "Oh, this is so nice that you minister to these men," because you will get a real quick lesson. Because the statement is, they are Good Sam. They don't represent what we do. They represent who we are as a parish family. That's what the Reverend Stephanie Spellers means in her book that she wrote called Radical Welcome. I met Stephanie when I was up in the Massachusetts area, and she was on cathedral staff as a newly ordained priest in the Diocese of Massachusetts. She now works for Bishop Curry in the area of welcoming and minority affairs. A parish that offers a radical welcome is one who welcomes the children, the invisible, whoever or wherever they are and whatever they are when they walk in the door. And they welcome them and invite them to enrich and change the community. It's different from being a welcoming community that says, "Oh, come on in, oh, it's so good to have you, and come be like us." It's come and change us and enrich us and help us grow. It's a very different type of welcome and really, really important. Now, last Monday, Lynn Farland from our diocese came to give her second presentation to our newcomers committee. This is part of our mission vision work. And we're going to be looking at a program called Invite, Welcome, and Connect. It's a program that I learned about at the evangelism work that I went to, and we've had a couple other people go and have some training, and we're working on instituting all of this program. Pam Butler is the chair, and I'll not steal her thunder, for we're just getting started, but some of what we talked about in welcoming is perfect for today. Many who visit us have been hurt by other churches and are seeking somewhere safe. They may be in a crisis or had a crisis that's finally pushed them back in the door. They're looking for a place to be seen, welcomed, and valued for who they are and where they are. The big question is, how do we respond? Now, there are many things that go into this, and we do a pretty good job overall, but there are things we do need to work on. Lynn showed us a video of what it's like to be a visitor in a church sometimes. She suggested we invite a mystery shopper, a friend, to come over, visit us, and then report back what we found. I did that one Sunday for a friend of mine when I was up for the Storytellers Convention up in when it was up in Washington, D.C. And she said, "My church thinks we do a really good job. Come visit." So Wendy and I walked in there in civvies, of course, because if you walk in wearing a collar, you get a whole different reception. Doesn't quite count. Didn't bring a prayer book with us, because that's another giveaway if you've got your prayer book with you. But we walked in, and we sat down. Now, we came off the parking lot. The ushers were at the front door, which is on the front street. There were no ushers there. There were bulletins which we found on the way out. And we sat down and somebody finally said something to us at the peace. Now, I think we do a little bit better than that. I think we do a whole lot better than that. But one thing that Lynn mentioned to us is, think about how we share the peace. Especially at this service. It's a wonderful time. Lots of hugs and commotion and everything else. But think about how you greet the new visitor, the person who's here. You know, when you go, hi, great to see you, hi, great to see you, hi, great to see you. Peace be with you. Think about that. Might we just say, peace be with you, and make that eye contact? Maybe, peace be with you. Would you like to come to coffee hour? I'll show you the way. That's different than just peace. Just a little thing to think about. But those are the things that we need to be very intentional about, especially in today's world, where people sometimes are skeptical coming in to a new church. For we need to welcome all who enter our doors if we are to be the beacon to all seeking God that our mission statement says that we are. For those who welcome a child in Christ's name, no matter their age or situation, welcomes Christ. And those who welcome Christ welcome not just him, but the one